Hey guys, welcome back to Let's Read Fallout Equestria, Chapter 13, Voices of the Past. Let's continue right where we left off.
Scavenged from the sky convoy up and running. By then, we would be fully mended and rested. My coat was growing back nicely over where it had been burned off. Velvet Remedy had already stopped fussing over Calamity's wing. Calamity was already getting restless. He had joined me because, like him, I wasn't content to do nothing while others were being abused and murdered. He respected the idea of Junction R7 as a base of operations, and was already drawing up plans for a workshop in one of the cattle cars.
Yeah.
But my Pegasus friend was never going to settle down and play happy homemaker. Velvet Remedy was still fretting over the most gravely injured whom she had been able to save, but I could tell that she was beginning to accept that there was nothing more she could do which other ponies were not capable of. Soon, she too would desire to leave this place. The Nightingale wasn't done flying yet. I, myself, wanted to stomp out the cruel shadow of Red Eyes' slavery that darkened the soul of Equestria. But that was a goal both vague and absurdly ambitious. I had proven I could save individuals, but I wasn't so arrogant as to believe I could actually change the course of armies and economies. In truth, the only tangible goal ahead of me was meeting with DJ Pony. I was rather counting on him to point me the way. Plus, after listening to his radio broadcasts for the last few days, I really did fancy the idea of getting Velvet Remedy's music onto the airwaves. By the end of the week, it would be time to go. We were ready to go. Except
that was fast.
For Velvet Remedy. I watched her laying on the floor of the train car she had claimed as her own, batting the memory orb we had scavenged from the wreckage of Ditsy-Doo liveries between her forehoofs. "You still haven't viewed that?" I asked with surprise. Velvet Remedy looked up at me with a cutely meek stare. "After what we found in the vault, how can I? I've been hoping that it's about Fluttershy, but now—" She caught it between her hooves and brought it up to her eyes. "What if it's a confession? What if it's bad?" I could understand. I remembered my reaction upon realizing Velvet Remedy was not a prisoner of the old Appaloosa slavers. And even though that had turned out to be for laudable reasons, I knew how much it hurt to see the pony you idolize fall from the pedestal you put them on. "Would you like me to view it for you first?" I offered. Velvet Remedy smiled gratefully and nodded. She set the memory orb down and backed away. I took a deep breath, swallowing back a sudden hesitation. I'd never actually viewed a memory orb before.
How do you even...
Logically,
how
I
do
knew
you
what to
even do
expect. A
Like,
reliving
they're
of
just
some other
orbs.
pony's experience. I'd been told such memories were visual, auditory, tactile, even taste and smell were preserved. But it would be crisp and vivid, or blurred by age. Would I see things as they had really been? Or would it be filtered by the perceptions and biases of the rememberer?
That's
Would
a
I sense
good
the pony's
question.
thoughts? And would I be able to tell them from my own? I felt a little weak. but
That's
also
also a
intensely
good
curious.
question. Like,
Velvet
is
Remedy
there
was watching
memory
me, her presence
contamination?
reminding me why I was doing this.
If you view enough of them, do you start to
knelt.
become those other ponies?
Leaning forward, I touched my horn to the memory orb and focused ever so slightly. A strange flushing sensation washed over me as the train car, Velvet Remedy, and the entire equestrian wasteland was obliterated and replaced with an entirely different reality. I was standing on a stage, or more precisely, the pony whose eyes I was seeing through and ears I was hearing through had stood on a stage. It was strangely like being paralyzed. I could feel what she felt, but I couldn't move on my own. I suddenly had the urgent desire to bite my lower lip, a desire followed by a flash of panic when I couldn't. I was looking over a crowded auditorium in a large and rather nice indoor theater. Many ponies in the crowd were engaged in conversation, and a low storm of overlapping voices filled the room. Everything was slightly muted and out of focus, but I could still make out the faces of each individual pony, a level of detail that defined this as a raw recording of the events by the brain of the pony I was, for lack of a better word, riding, rather than what the pony could have naturally recalled on her own. I wanted to take a closer look at the walls of the auditorium. I had a distinct impression that they were not wood paneling, but rather actually formed from growing trees, much like the Ponyville library. But, of course, I could only watch what this pony had watched. She concentrated on an elder, yet adorably cute, yellow Pegasus with a flowing pink mane falling over much of her face, and a matching pink tail, who walked reluctantly past her towards a podium standing in the front and center of the stage. The yellow pony stared at the floor as she walked, as if afraid to make eye contact with the crowd before she had the podium between her and them like a shield. I was struck by the distinct similarity between this pony and the one on the billboard I had seen a week ago. Although what string of fortunes could take a pony from being the spokesmodel for a carrot-flavored cola to serving as one of the most powerful mares in government was beyond me.
Luna being a
Hello?
dumbass.
Can I
That's
have your
what.
attention, please? If you don't mind. The massive speaker system of the auditorium magnified the pony's voice, boosting it up to what nearly reached the volume of normal conversation. And yet, the crowd hushed instantly. Every buck and mare in the crowd turned their attention fully to the yellow mare with the 3 pink butterflies as her cutie mark. I immediately recognized the pattern. Velvet Remedy had hung the medical boxes in her Appaloosa boxcar so their butterflies would look exactly like that.
That still fucking bothers me. Just how, Luna, you're not smart. Like, why would you pick these 6 to be leaders of ministries? I still say the only one that had any business even coming close to running a ministry was Rainbow Dash. And that's because she actually has some experience by leading the Ponyville weather team. Just, Luna, what the... I want to know what Luna was thinking. I want to see one of Luna's memory orbs.
Thank you, the Pegasus squeaked, seeming surprised at being so abruptly the focus of so much attention. It dawned on me she didn't have the assertiveness to command their attention like this. The ponies in the crowd didn't listen out of obedience, much less fear of the mare in charge. No. In fact, this wasn't even respect I was seeing. This was love.
Aww.
Now, I know every pony is really, really busy, so I'll try not to take too much of your time.
Ah, my nose.
I got it, but I don't think she got it. Fluttershy was worried about offending them, or inconveniencing them. From their expressions, I doubted that was even possible. Princess Luna has given us... that is, she's allowed us to... we have a new project. I heard a few nickers and nays rippling through the crowd. No matter how much they loved the mare on the stage, this was clearly not welcome news. The yellow Pegasus eeped, cringing slightly. Please, it's okay. I know we're all overworked and every pony has so much to do already. And you're all doing just wonderful. As she added that last statement, she smiled warmly at all of them. If all the water in Stable 2 had frozen, that smile could have melted it. But this is really important. I've been talking with Princess Luna and I really, really want to do this project. I'm behind it completely, and I really hope you will be too. The dissenting sounds stopped. Every pony listened.
I don't know about this.
This horrible, terrible war has gone on far, far too long and hurt so many people. I could hear the sadness and hurt in her voice. Sweet, merciful Celestia, I wanted to gallop over and give her a hug.
That begs a question. K-Cat, how long was the war going on by this point? Because I have some thoughts, but I need to know the actual length of the conflict by this point. Oh well. Just answer if you have it figured out.
I wanted to lie to her and tell her
Or
everything
don't.
was going to be alright. So, Luna says the Ministry of Peace should work on a way to end the war, and bring everyone, pony and zebra alike, back to the table of diplomacy. Some pony, whom I had the distinct urge to buck in the face, actually asked, "If the war ends, won't we all be out of a job?" I heard Fluttershy whisper the prayer, from Celestia's lips to your ears. I stumbled, gasping as if I had been holding my breath as my own world burst through, flooding over me. I spent a moment steadying myself. Velvet Remedy was looking up at me with big, beautiful eyes. I smiled to her, levitating the memory orb back to her, being careful to focus around it rather than directly at it so as not to be lost in the memory again. It's not bad. We had traveled for most of a day under the slate-gray skies. The cold, dead bones of Manhattan loomed ahead, still at least a day off. But, even this far out, the balefire bomb's destructive power had been felt. The flames had not reached anywhere near here, but the massive shockwave had flattened trees and caved in homes. We approached a small, very humble home set apart from all the others, a few miles farther from Manhattan than the rest of the suburbs which had surrounded the city. The front door of the hut faced away from the city, as if the home itself felt shunned by the urban monoliths in the background. Because of this, the front door had survived entirely intact while most of the hut beyond had collapsed into itself. At this distance, damage from the bomb couldn't have been any more than that of a strong windstorm, but it had weakened the other side of the home enough for the decaying effects of age to ravage it. As we got closer, Calamity whispered, "Some ponies home." He lifted off into the air, stealthily flying forward to get a better look. A moment later, he returned with a smile. "We're good. Got ourselves a wandering merchant who's holed up in the ruin. Don't mind the owl. I'm pretty sure it's tame."
Ow.
Calamity spun
Oh,
on his
God.
wings and flew ahead to greet the merchant.
It's freaking cold.
Velvet Remedy trotted after him, moving around the small building's lack of a west side. As I followed, I noticed that some pony had nailed a recording to the front door. It looked ancient and badly weathered. I suspected it had been there since the owner of the hut had died. I changed course, trotting towards the door, and my pit-buck flashed an enigmatic notice on my eyes forward sparkle, letting me know that it had decided to label this particular ruined hut Trixie's Cottage. I had long since given up trying to understand why my pit-buck kept marking seemingly random locations.
What? No.
The recording was in horrible shape.
Ooh.
I pulled it down, intending to work on it while Calamity haggled with the merchant. In the back of my mind, a voice insisted that this might be hard enough to call for some party-time mince owls. I knew the voice was lying, and I tried to ignore it. As I rejoined the others, the merchant, a grizzled unicorn stallion with a dust-colored mane wearing trader barding, was telling Calamity and Velvet Remedy tall tales of the Manhattan ruins. From the looks he kept giving Velvet, it was clear he had not seen so lovely a mare in, well, a very long time, if ever.
Ever. It's
Ghosts?
probably ever.
Velvet Remedy asked skeptically. "Yep, that's why I don't venture any farther than Fetlock myself. Well, them are the manticores." "Manticores?" Calamity questioned. "What would forest creatures like those be doing in the ruins of some major
Ghost!
pre-war city?"
Stealth bucks. Oh,
"I know, but the place is lousy with them. Best steer clear."
It just clicked.
Velvet wasn't going to give up. "And with ghosts." The merchant unicorn nodded. "That's what they say, at least. Keep in mind, Manhattan isn't like Canterlot, where the ponies died slow and painful. Manhattan was like nothing. Happened so fast the pony spirits didn't even realize they were dead." "Nonsense," Velvet neighed. The pony finally noticed my approach and gave me a big grin. "Ah, another customer. Welcome to," he waved a hoof at the collapsed building around him, "the Luna-damned shithole." Behind him,
Awesome
a
name.
robotic
I like
owl
him.
whirred and hooted from the top of a doorless cabinet. When it opened its metal beak, I could see the gleam of a small magical energy weapon hidden inside. "It ain't much, but it's all mine." Curiosity got the better of me. "How much for the bird?" The merchant pony laughed roughly. "Sorry, miss, old Gearwing ain't for sale. The merchant don't live long in the wasteland if he doesn't travel without backup." I nodded. I passed Calamity the
Wait.
magical energy lance to add to his bartering load and sat back down to work on the recording. These things were designed to be ridiculously
that thing have a
hardy,
gun
but
inside
this
its
one had
beak?
taken one hell of a beating.
Is that what just...
As I floated out a
happened?
few of my precision tools, I realized it would be a small miracle if I could get anything off of it. I had just started working when Velvet Remedy gave a stomp. "No, no, no!" I looked up, wondering why she objected to my efforts, only to realize she was neighing to Calamity. Lowering her head, she pushed him away from the merchant. "What's got your tail in a twist?" he huffed. "You're letting him rob you, that's what," she retorted. "Here, let a pony who knows a thing or two handle this." I watched my companions, bemused. The merchant pony was staring at them with a slight frown. Velvet Remedy returned, and while Calamity watched from behind, she ignored the pile of goods he was trying to sell the pony, not to mention everything he'd been hoping to buy. She fluttered her eyelashes at the merchant, giving him a look that sparked a twitch of jealousy in my breast, and asked, "That dress over there, that one in the spring colors? How much is that?" She haggled, turning on the charm while demurely noting the poor condition of each dress he floated over to her. Before long, she'd already purchased 4 dresses for the cost of 2. Trotting over to Calamity, her dresses in tow, she asked him politely, "Now, would you be a wonderful dear and use the fabric from these to fix the damage our awful fight with that dragon did to the magnificent gown Little Pip gave me?"
Oh.
I felt my heart do a little leap. Calamity was just staring at her, nonplussed. The merchant slowly mouthed, "Fight with that dragon," as he watched her. "Now what'd you do that for? You didn't even get any medical supplies." Velvet shrugged off the question. "Pretty please," she added, smiling
Oh,
at Calamity,
fight
quickly
with the...
got to work.
I see what she's
I went back
doing.
to tinkering with the recording. After the better part of an hour, I was pleased by my progress. I realized the contents of the recording wouldn't be worth the effort, but by now it had become a challenge. The actual message didn't matter.
Turns out to be
Calamity
the
had
most
finished repairing
important
Velvet Remedy's
message
gorgeous
in
dress.
the
I was impressed.
world.
It almost looked as good as new. Velvet smiled and gave him a small kiss on the cheek, eliciting another flutter of jealousy from me, then took the dress and trotted around back behind some rubble to put it on, which, truth be told, made no sense to me. My pit-buck made its last scan of the message, reconstructing it. I'd salvaged almost the entire thing. I slipped in my earbloom and listened to what an hour's work had gotten me. I knew better than to expect much, but if it turned out to be a door-to-door advert recording for ties, I was going to be a little miffed. Whitelip, I'm sorry to miss you this week. You know that seeing you is one of the high points of my week, but I just got the most amazing call. Twilight Sparkle, yes, the Twilight Sparkle called me. Right out of the blue. Isn't that amazing? I mean, I knew her back when she was nothing and I was... Never mind, I'm just so surprised she even remembers me. But no, she invited me to Manhattan this weekend to talk about a proposal. Can you imagine? Me, working for the Ministry of Magic? And when the mayor of the ministry herself personally calls you out to pitch the offer, you know it has to be important. I hesitate to say it, but I'm back. Oh yes, Trixie's life is about to finally turn around. I don't know how long I'll be in Manhattan, but just to be safe, go ahead and leave my usual order on the doorsteps. 3 bottles of milk and a carton of butter. I'll pay you next week. I promise. All that effort, and I'd salvaged an order to the local milk buck. I promised myself I wouldn't be bothered, but I kinda was. Velvet Remedy had re-emerged, looking impossibly stunning. I'd already seen her in this dress, and it was still making my legs weak. The merchant pony had not, and was clearly smitten. Now then, let's get down to business, Velvet said with a gracious smile.
Gotta
floating the
add to
magical
that
energy lance from
charisma.
the pile of goods Calamity had been trying to sell. Now, I'm not sure if you have caps for something like this, but I'm sure we can come to an arrangement. Not sure I have. The merchant tried to regain his footing. Lady, I'd say that's worth... quite a lot, Velvet smiled. Consider, all the power of a magical energy weapon, but in the form of a lance that any pony can use without special training. A devastatingly effective weapon that will never run out of bullets or sparkle packs. Not spending your hard-earned caps on ammo. No threat of having to stop and reload at a critical point in battle. Velvet Remedy lifted it up dramatically. And
Oh
just look at
God,
its
she's
condition.
a sail mare.
Why, the gemstone alone is worth more than the meager medical supplies your delightful little shithole has to offer. She paused, eyeing the magical energy lance. Why, on second thought, I just can't imagine parting with it. Sure, it's a little heavy, but... All right, the merchant unicorn broke in. What do you want for it? I looked over to Calamity. From his expression, he was thinking the same thing. From now on, Velvet Remedy would do all of our bartering. The body of the radroach crunched grossly
I
under
see
my
how
hoof.
it is. Velvet's
I quickly
charisma,
scraped the radroach gunk from my
Calamity's
hoof using a collapsed road sign.
perception.
We'd slept at Trixie's
Little
cottage
Pip
the night
is
before, and had
intelligence.
made good time over the course of the morning.
Does that mean they're going to get one for
According
every
to my
special
pit buck,
stat?
the maze of blackened ruined homes we were pushing through had once been the suburb of Fetlock. We were taking it slow. Such a large area meant that there was still a dusting of scavenge-worthy items to be found, even outside of locked safes and trunks. Sadly, no medical supplies. Velvet was trying to
Place
use the
probably
few
be
supplies
picked
we got
clean
from
by
the merchant
now.
sparingly, cutting healing bandages into halves or thirds, but still insisted on cleaning and dressing cuts and scrapes to avoid infection. Velvet Remedy squealed happily as she opened up an old refrigerator and found several bottles of still pure water inside. Our canteens were almost empty, and the
That
few
probably
working
belongs to
faucets I had found
somebody.
made my pit buck clickety-click at the radiation levels of the water. Her find was a blessing straight from Luna. There was no shelter to speak of, and red spots were always crawling across my EFS system. Mostly radroaches or the occasional giant mutant hedgehogs. The magical radiation that had soaked into the water had twisted a multitude of the wasteland's animal inhabitants into grotesque and often monstrous versions of their original species. Most creatures had not survived the transformations. But at least it wasn't raiders or slavers. It was a relief not to be battling other ponies. Velvet Remedy was beginning to develop skill with her needler pistol. Her moral reservations about killing clearly did not apply to ravenous and hostile beasts. Calamity swooped up to us, having been scouting ahead. We're in luck. I think I spotted some place for us to crash for the night. Velvet Remedy and I let him lead the way. 2 blocks later we came upon the hulk of a passenger skywagon. This one was in far better shape than the one I had taken a shortcut through back under the Cloudsdale outskirts. The paint was blackened by fire and flaking away with age, and what lay beneath was as much rust as metal. But it was fully intact, having been resting at the wagon stop when the megaspell went off rather than having fallen from the sky. It had also been loaded with passengers, who, along with the wagon pony harnessed at the front, had been burned alive by the rolling wall of bale flame that had swept through Fetlock.
Nasty.
The passenger wagon was full of charred skeletons and burned luggage.
Oh, got my nose!
You want us to bed
Fuck.
down here? Velvet Remedy asked, looking appalled. Calamity, that's grim. Even for you.
Yeah.
I stared at the wagon full of pony skeletons and found myself wondering who they had been. What had their lives been like? Had they been happy?
Well, those two are Flim and
I
Flam,
wondered if the
so,
wagon had been heading
it's
to
perfectly fine
Manhattan.
they're dead.
Were these ponies all headed to work? Were some of them friends, chatting about the shopping they would do? I squelched those thoughts under a strong hoof. The apocalypse was already a daily assault of horror and sadness without making it worse by actually thinking about it. Doing that could only drive a pony to suicide or madness. Looking away, I felt a tiny ember of joy as I spotted the flickering light of a sparkle cola machine tucked into a nook just around the corner from the wagon stop. "I'll be right back," I announced, leaving Calamity and Velvet to clean out the passenger wagon. Or argue about it. Whichever. I trotted around the wall and into the nook, which I immediately realized was much larger than I had imagined. The red dots on my EFS had become so ubiquitous that I'd stopped paying attention to them. Big mistake. The manticore turned, took one look at the intruder who had just blithely clopped into its den, and let out a roar that blasted my mane back. The carrion stench of its breath let me know I was dinner. I stared up at the huge, brutish monster with its mighty forepaws, huge wings, and venomous tail, and was very glad I hadn't had anything to drink in several hours. I didn't have any of my weapons ready. I hadn't wanted to waste precious ammo on things I could kill with a buck or a stomp.
Dumbass!
The manticore certainly didn't fall into that category.
Dumbass!
I spun, throwing a kick with both hind legs
Dumbass!
into its nose. It was like bucking a brick wall. Instead of knocking the manticore back, I sent myself forward in a faceplant. The manticore lifted a paw full of large claws and swiped at my back. If it hadn't been for Ditzy-Doo's armoring, the blow might have cut through my spine.
Ooh.
Instead, pain splashed through my bruised back. I scrambled onto my hooves and ran. The manticore gave chase, bouncing after me. I'm short, and it was bigger than several stacked apple carts. The chase was brief. The manticore headbutted me, sending me flying. I hit the street hard and rolled until I hit what was left of the wall of the hardware shop across the street. The manticore charged at me as I struggled to my feet, dazed. The sound of Calamity's battle saddle cracked through the air. Blood erupted from one of the manticore's front legs, and it stumbled, missing me to crash instead into an old lamppost. The lamppost tore out of the ground and toppled with an iron thud. As the manticore recovered, a half-burned dress that must have come from the luggage littering the wagon flew through the air on a field of Velvet Remedy's magic and tied itself around the manticore's head like a blindfold. The manticore lashed out blindly with its poisonous scorpion-like tail. One of the strikes hit the broken sidewalk less than a foot from me. Calamity fired again, this time into the side of the creature. I floated out little Macintosh and took aim, backing away.
I thought you didn't have your weapons.
The manticore shook its head violently, tossing the blindfold. I got
she,
one good
she
shot
said
off
she
hitting
didn't have
its
her
tail.
weapons, right?
The power of little Macintosh cleaved the manticore's tail in two.
We'll just
It
assume
roared in
Calamity
pain
brought
and
it.
launched itself at me. This time I was ready, and dodged swiftly out of the way. I turned back towards it, leveling little Macintosh at the manticore's backside. The monster spread its wings and launched itself into the air, flying towards Calamity. Calamity got one more shot off, blossoms of crimson sprouting in its chest, before the creature plowed into him, knocking Calamity from the sky. Worried for my friend, I turned to see where he had fallen as I circled back. Calamity groaned, not getting up, but at least looking intact. His hat was laying in the street not far away. Velvet Remedy trotted up to me. "You're the telekinetic expert. Try these." She was levitating along with her, a stack of saw blades from the hardware store.
Ooh.
As the manticore
I'm
swooped
getting
towards us,
memories
I
of
filled the air with
Half-Life
spitting
2.
death.
The gravity gun.
Velvet Remedy finished watching the Ministry of Peace memory orb for at least the 12th time, and was now pretending not to watch me cooking manticore meat. According to my pit buck, it was relatively healthy, at least as far as meat went. Velvet was eating the last can of corn. Calamity had polished off our last 2 cans of beans the better part of an hour ago and then crawled under the passenger wagon to look at something. He'd yet to come up for air. It was getting quite dark. The wagon was still the best option for a place to sleep, but we would have to do it in shifts. My whole body ached from getting knocked around by the manticore. I was almost getting used to being in a constant state of pain.
Ugh,
Calamity
that's
had
not
gotten the worst of
good.
it, but his concussion seemed mercifully
You
minor.
shouldn't get used to
Only
that.
Velvet Remedy made it through unscathed.
That's how you become Reek.
Still,
you
the
don't
fight
want to
was
become
worth my
Reek.
aches and pains. The venom sacs from the manticore's stinging tail were the last things I needed to build the poison dart gun from the schematics I'd found in the old Appaloosa armory. With a sigh, Velvet Remedy clopped over to the wagon and crouched down, peering under it. "Oh, come out. There's nothing under there that could be this interesting," she judged. You really took a bad fall back there, and you still won't let me examine you. With a fierce determination, she added, and this time I want you to strip completely out of that saddle and let me give you a full examination. I popped open one of the sparkle coals I'd found inside the vending machine after the battle and took a sip. Warm, but not quite flat, and deliciously carroty. Calamity crawled obediently out from under the wagon, a big grin on his face. Great news, he announced. It's pretty much intact. Whatever are you talking about? Velvet Remedy asked.
No!
Calamity nodded back towards the passenger wagon. I found myself questioning his definition of intact. The windows were all shattered, and there were several gaping holes in the roof. A spot the size of 2 hooves had rusted through the left side. What I'm talking about is that unlike any of the ones y'all saw before, this beauty is more than just an explosion waiting to happen. Calamity turned to the wagon and smiled. I can fix her up. All she needs is a new flux regulator. She,
Do
Velvet
it.
whinnied. Yep.
Do
He
it!
flapped his wings, lifting into the air. I raised an eyebrow. A flux regulator? That's a pretty specific piece of equipment. Not something we're likely to just find laying around.
Hey, you
Calamity
never
came
know.
back down to earth. Yeah, I know, but just think. If we did, then I could pull us all along, plus any equipment we wanted to carry, all over the equestrian wasteland. No more multi-day trots across infested landscape.
Oh, it's the car
Velvet Remedy nickered.
from Fallout
Oh
2.
yes, because your track record with the vehicle's been so
Only a
stellar
giant
so far.
bus.
I remembered the train. And the apple cart. Maybe climbing into one that was also a bomb wasn't such a good idea. I didn't say so, however. No reason to smother Calamity's enthusiasm. It wasn't as if we had the part he needed to fix it, and any further hesitation could be put off until we did. Which, in all likelihood, would be never.
That's not how things work in the
meanwhile,
wasteland,
was
little
prodding
Pip.
Calamity to get out of his battle
You got a
saddle
quest
hard.
now.
I know you made it yourself and you prefer to wear it, but really, I've been with you two for over a week now, and I still haven't seen your cutie mark. There's fondness for a sense of fashion, and there's just being plain ridiculous. My attention had turned towards my dinner, but I perked at that. Come to think of it, I'd never seen Calamity's cutie mark either. He was always wearing at least his barding and saddlebags, except when he was bathed. And I'd have given him privacy for that, albeit mostly out of disinterest in watching a stallion clean himself. That's 'cause I don't have one. What? No way. My own cutie mark had taken forever to show, but I'd still had it for years. How could a grown buck not have his yet?
By not
Oh.
getting it.
Velvet Remedy looked away, seeming unsure of how she should respond. Calamity
I always enjoy the story potential for a adult blank flank. Like where it's a human in pony form who doesn't have one, or just a pony who grew up and never got their cutie mark. I enjoy the story ideas behind that. And, it's time to end the video anyways. We're almost done with the chapter, so I guess next time we'll finish it. I'll give my thoughts, and then we'll move on to chapter 14, Steel Hooves. I think that's the Brotherhood of Steel in this universe. I think. Maybe. I mean, there's clearly at least one. So, he could be a blank flank. I mean, like I said, I enjoy the story ideas behind that sort of, that idea. Maybe K-Cat does. Or whatever. Maybe he got it cut off. Ugh. Ever since Cupcakes, just the idea of cut it. Well, we'll see you next time, guys.